I didn't raise my voice that night. I didn't argue. I didn't even move. I sat at the dining table and watched my 6-year-old daughter shrink into herself while my sister laughed, tapping the device tucked behind her ear like it was a novelty toy. My father brushed it off as a joke. Forks clinked against plates. Smiles stayed in place. I stayed silent. My husband didn't. He stood up, pushed his chair back, and walked to the front door. No yelling. No speech. He opened it and waited. That silence would change everything by morning, though no one else knew it yet. Before I tell you how, let me explain who I am. My name is Lily. I'm in my late 30s. A mother. A wife. And the kind of person my family has never quite known how to place. I've always been the quiet one, the reliable one. The one who shows up early, stays late, and never asks for much in return. I dress simply. No jewelry worth noticing. A calm face people mistake for weakness. I let them. That night, we were hosting dinner at our house. Nothing fancy. A long table, food I'd been cooking since early afternoon, and the constant hum of the kitchen vent that never quite shuts off. My daughter, Emma, sat beside me, swinging her legs beneath the chair. Her fingers kept brushing the small hearing device behind her ear. She'd only been wearing it for a few weeks. Every morning before school, she stood in front of the mirror and asked, "Does it look weird today?" Every morning, I told her the truth. It looks like you. Emma is 6. Curious. Gentle. She hears the world differently now, and is learning how to trust it again. We practiced sounds at the kitchen table. The click of a pen, the oven timer, my voice when I whispered her name. That night, she was proud. She wanted everyone to see how brave she was being. My sister Rachel arrived late, as usual. Loud laugh. Sharp eyes. She scanned the room like some people scan price tags, measuring, judging. My parents followed her lead. Settling into their seats like this was familiar territory. Comfortable. Predictable. My brother barely looked up from his phone. At first, the conversation stayed safe. Work. Traffic. Someone's upcoming vacation. Emma leaned toward me every time she heard her name across the table, her face lighting up whenever she caught a word on her own. Then Rachel noticed the device. She didn't ask. She didn't lower her voice. She pointed, tilted her head, and smiled in that way that always made my stomach tighten. The table went quiet, not awkward quiet, but waiting quiet. I answered before anyone else could. Calm. Measured. I explained what the device was, why Emma needed it, and how well she was doing. I kept my voice steady because I believed, stupidly, that clarity would be enough. My mother's smile tightened. My father leaned back in his chair. Emma stopped swinging her legs. Something shifted in the room. Not loud. Not sudden. Just subtle, like pressure dropping before a storm you don't see yet. Still, I stayed seated. Still, I tried to hold the moment together. I didn't realize this was the last normal minute we'd have. Rachel leaned forward, squinting like she was examining a puzzle she didn't respect. Her finger hovered in the air, not quite pointing. "So that's what that is," she said. "I thought it was some kind of gadget." Emma pressed into my arm. Her body went still, the careful kind of still. I explained again, slower, what the device did. How it helped her hear certain frequencies. How it wasn't a phase or something she'd outgrow. I chose my words carefully, trimming off anything emotional. Facts only. Rachel smiled and shook her head. "She's so little," she said. "It just feels sad." The word hung in the air. My mother reached for her water, took a sip, and set it down too carefully. "People notice these things," she said, not looking at Emma. "Kids can be cruel." I wanted to ask her who she thought was being cruel right now. Instead, I breathed in through my nose and counted silently. My father chuckled. "Come on," he said. "It's not like anyone's attacking her. We're just talking." Rachel lifted her glass. "Exactly. It's just conversation." Emma touched the device at her ear, then dropped her hand like she'd done something wrong. I spoke again. My voice felt thinner now. "She understands more than you think." My father sighed, exaggerated and impatient. Lily, he said. You're taking this way too personally. It's a joke. You need to lighten up. And that word, joke, hit harder than anything else. The word joke landed heavier than anything Rachel had said. Jokes don't make a child stare at her plate and stop eating. Jokes don't make the room feel smaller. But my mother nodded, relieved. He's right, she added. No one means anything by it. Maybe going forward you could look into something less obvious, just to make things easier.
Easier for who?
I opened my mouth, then closed it again. The familiar pressure settled in my chest, the instinct I'd carried my whole life to smooth things over, to make myself smaller so everyone else could stay comfortable. Across the table, Emma's eyes were glossy. She wasn't crying. She was trying not to. She leaned toward me and whispered so softly I almost missed it. Did I do something wrong? That was the moment something inside me stopped negotiating. I didn't answer right away. I placed my hand over hers, warm and steady, even though my pulse thundered in my ears. I looked around the table at my sister's impatience, my parents' expectant faces, all of them waiting for me to laugh it off, to cooperate. I realized that if I spoke, nothing would change. So I stayed quiet. The silence didn't last long. Mark pushed his chair back, not abruptly, just enough for the legs to scrape softly against the floor. The sound cut through the room better than any raised voice. He stood, straightened his sleeves and walked toward the front door. No warning. No explanation. He opened it and stepped aside. At first, no one moved. My father laughed uncertainly, like this was a strange pause in a play he didn't understand. Rachel rolled her eyes and muttered something under her breath. My mother clutched her napkin tighter, confusion flickering across her face. Mark didn't look at them. He kept his eyes on the open doorway. Out, he said quietly. One word. Calm. Final. The room fractured instantly. Rachel stood up, her voice sharp with offense. Are you serious right now? My parents followed, talking over each other, insisting this was dramatic, unnecessary, embarrassing. Someone said the word family like it was a shield, like it excused everything that had just happened. Mark didn't move. They passed me without meeting my eyes. When the door closed behind them, the house went still. Not tense. Empty. The kind of quiet that feels earned. Emma's breath hitched. I pulled her onto my lap, felt her small body curl inward like she was bracing for something else to go wrong. Are they mad at me? She asked. No, I said immediately. My voice surprised me. It didn't shake. They're wrong. She nodded, like she wanted to believe me. Later that night, after Mark tucked Emma into bed and waited until her breathing evened out, I went downstairs alone. I didn't turn on the lights. I sat at the small desk in the corner of the living room, the one I usually used to pay bills when everyone else was asleep. I opened my laptop. The screen glowed, familiar and unremarkable. A spreadsheet filled the screen. Rows and columns I'd built quietly over years. Tuition payments. Medical bills. Monthly transfers. Notes I'd written to myself and never expected anyone else to read. Nothing dramatic at first glance. Just numbers. Dates. Consistency. I scrolled slowly. I remembered the first time I added a line. A small amount. Just help. Temporary, I told myself. Then another. And another. Over time, it became routine, like breathing. Something I did without thinking because I could. I hadn't told them. Not because I was hiding it, but because I didn't want it to matter. I clicked into my bank portal. The cursor blinked, waiting. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt clear. I began canceling the payments one by one. No messages. No explanations. Just quiet confirmations appearing on the screen. Each click felt like loosening a knot I'd been carrying for years. When I closed the laptop, the house was still silent. Upstairs, Emma slept peacefully. Her hearing aid rested on the nightstand beside her favorite book. By morning, the silence would travel far beyond these walls. The first call came just before 7. I was standing barefoot on the cold kitchen tile, pouring cereal into a bowl while Emma sat on the counter, humming softly. She liked doing that now, testing sounds, stretching them out in the air. My phone vibrated against the counter. I didn't look. A second call came. Then a third. Mark glanced at me over his coffee mug. I shook my head slightly. Not yet. Emma tilted her head. Is it loud? She asked. No, I said. It can wait. By the time I watched her climb onto the school bus, my phone had stopped buzzing and started lighting up. Missed calls. Messages stacking quickly. The kind of urgency people only feel when something they rely on disappears. I drove home slowly. When I walked back into the house, the quiet felt different than the night before. Heavier. Charged. Like the air before a storm finally breaks. I sat at the desk and picked up my phone. The first message was from my mother. There must be some mistake, she wrote. The school called. They said the payment didn't go through. I typed back calmly. There's no mistake. 3 dots appeared under my mother's message. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then my phone rang. Rachel's name lit up the screen. I answered. What did you do? She demanded. No griting. No hesitación. I stopped the payments, I said calmly. What payments? Her voice wavered just enough to tell me she already knew. The ones I've been making for years. There was a long pause. Too long. That's not funny, Lily, she said. The school says we owe a huge amount. Sophie and Nathan's education isn't a joke. I'm sure they do, I replied. But it's not a joke. It's a responsibility. One that belongs to you and your husband. Her breathing turned sharp. You don't get to pull something like this over a comment. Last night was nothing. A joke, I repeated. One that made my daughter touch her ear like it was something shameful. That's not what I meant, she said quickly. I don't know what you meant, I said. I know what happened. She started talking fast, explaining without apologizing, promising she'd talk to the kids, saying she was stressed, saying it wasn't fair to punish them. I'm not punishing them, I said. I'm stepping back. I ended the call. My father called next. His voice was tight but controlled. What's going on? Your mother is upset. The club called. The billing office at her doctor's office called too. Yes, I said. I canceled everything. He laughed, short and disbelieving. Everything. Everything. Memberships. Extra medical bills. The support I've been giving your son. Silence stretched between us. Why would you do that? He asked finally. Over something so small? Small, I said. My daughter asked me if she was broken. He exhaled sharply. You're being emotional. No, Iraplia. I'm being clear. You never told us you were paying for these things, he said. How are we supposed to know? That's exactly the point, I said. You didn't know. You didn't ask. He shifted tactics. His voice softened. We're family. The word felt thin. Family doesn't mock a child, I said. Family doesn't suggest hiding medical equipment to protect appearances. He went quiet. I've been covering roughly the same amount every month for years, I continued. I kept track. I always do. You don't need to do this, he said carefully. We can talk. We did talk, I said. You told me to lighten up. My mother took the phone. Her voice cracked immediately. We didn't mean it that way. Then how did you mean it? I asked gently. She didn't answer. I didn't stop because I was angry, I said. I stopped because I finally understood something. You didn't respect me. You respected what you thought I couldn't do. She cried then. Real tears. We love Emma, she said. Love isn't what you say after, I replied. It's what you do in the moment. I ended the call before she could ask what I knew was coming. My brother called last. His voice sounded panicked. My account is overdrawn. The payment didn't go through. What's happening? I stopped making the payments, I said. What payments? he asked, genuinely confused. The ones covering your business loan. That's not possible, he said quickly. I never borrowed from you. You borrowed from a bank, I said. I paid it. For how long? He whispered. Years. He went quiet. Then he started explaining. How he assumed the bank adjusted something. How he never questioned it. You didn't notice, I said. He apologized over and over. Promised to fix things. Promised to talk to Rachel. To our parents. I'm not doing this to teach a lesson, I said. I'm doing it because I'm done being invisible. When the calls finally stopped, the house was quiet again. But this time it wasn't empty. It felt balanced. That afternoon, I picked Emma up from school. She ran toward me, smiling, telling me about a bell she'd heard during reading time. A sound she'd never noticed before. You heard it all by yourself? I asked. She nodded proudly. I did. That night, I tucked her into bed. She looked at me carefully. Are they still mad? They're dealing with their own feelings, I said. I don't think I like their jokes, she whispered. You don't have to, I replied. After she fell asleep, I stood in the doorway for a long time. I understood then that silence, when chosen, isn't weakness. It's a line. The next few days unfolded exactly the way consequences usually do, quietly at first, then all at once. No one called to argue anymore. No one demanded I restore the payments. Reality settled in, heavy and unavoidable. The silence they'd relied on for years had been holding everything up, and now it was gone. Updates reached me indirectly. My mother mentioned carefully that Rachel had pulled the kids out of private school. Longer commutes. New routines. Less room for extras. She didn't complain, not to me. She spoke like someone testing the ground, unsure where it was still solid. My parents canceled memberships they'd held for years. My mother switched doctors. My father sold his car and bought something practical, unremarkable. Adjustments I'd been making quietly in my own life for a long time, now finally visible. My brother took a job he'd once dismissed as beneath him. He stopped talking about potential and started talking about stability. No one asked me to help again. That mattered. I redirected the money quietly, the same way I'd always done things. Toward programs that helped children like Emma access hearing support earlier. Toward families who didn't have the luxury of pretending medical needs were optional. It felt clean. Right. At home, the change was gentler. Emma stopped asking if her hearing aid looked strange. One afternoon, she told me a classmate thought it was kind of cool and wanted to know how it worked. She said it casually, like it wasn't something she'd practiced believing yet. I let her get there on her own. The family group chat went silent. No photos. No updates. Just space. And in that space, something settled. A week later, Emma brought home a drawing. 3 stick figures. Me. Mark. Her. No extras. No explanations. This is my family, she said. I understood then that boundaries don't break families. They reveal them. Emma's hearing aid isn't something we hide anymore. It's part of how she meets the world, confident, unapologetic. She wears her hair however she wants. Some days it covers the device. Some days it doesn't. No one comments. And if they do, she answers before I can. It helps me hear, she says, like that's the end of the story. Because it is. Mark and I don't talk about that night often. We don't need to. It sits between us like an understanding, solid and unmoving. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He opened a door and drew a line. I followed through. People assume moments like these are explosive. That they come with shouting and slammed doors. But this one came with quiet choices made deliberately. With spreadsheets. With canceled payments. With a refusal to keep absorbing disrespect in the name of peace. I still love my family. That didn't disappear. But love without boundaries is just endurance. And endurance isn't the same thing as care. Emma is learning sounds now she never noticed before. Footsteps in the hallway. Birds in the morning. The soft click of the light switch when she turns it off herself. She hums while she does her homework, testing notes, stretching them out like they're something she owns. Sometimes she asks questions about people who aren't around anymore. I answer honestly, without bitterness. They're figuring things out, I tell her. That's true. I don't know what our relationship will look like years from now. I'm not trying to control that. I'm just not sacrificing my child's sense of safety to preserve someone else's comfort. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: silence can protect, but it can also enable. The difference is choosing when to keep it and when to let it go. I chose my daughter. And I'd do it again, every time. If this story resonated with you, share where you're listening from. Tell me, have you ever had to protect someone you love from your own family?